Europe is home to many countries like Germany, Austria, Poland, Hungary, France, Italy, and Romania, to name a few. And according to the Bible, this vast continent has a family tree that can be traced down to Japhet, son of Noah, after the floods. Do you want to know more about how the Europeans came about to become such a great and mighty territory? Stick around to find out. Genesis chapter 10 lists the names of the ancestors of some European peoples. If you did not know, the sacred scriptures explain what these texts mean by looking at the symbols they use and where the figures and people come from. Several European peoples are named in the sacred scriptures, but the Greeks and Macedonians stand out because they are direct descendants of one of Japheth's sons. With this information, we already know the ancestors of the people of Europe, in the same way that Javan, son of Japheth, is considered the father of the Greeks. So we can assume that Japheth is the father of Europeans based on ancient genealogies, Jewish readings, and other books, as well as the general belief of ancient Semitic people. All of these texts lead to Japheth, who was Noah's son. Japheth means things like beautiful pale growth or multiplication. People from Europe are called Japhethi peoples or Jaffa peoples in the Bible. The European language family, which includes English, German, Russian, Ukrainian, and many others, is also called the Japheth language family, after the ancestor of the European people. In chapter 10 of the book of Genesis and the book of Chronicles, the sacred scriptures talk about the ancestors of the people of Europe. In them, we can see how Japheth's 7 sons and grandsons spread abroad and started races. The names of Japheth's sons and grandsons can help us figure out where ancient Europeans came from. In ancient times, the Israelites called the people of Europe Japhets and Javanites. They called the people of Greece Javanites, or simply sons of Javan. The names of each of these children can be found in the book of Genesis chapter 10. From now on, we will say each of their names so you can better understand who these people were and how they became the forefathers of the land of Europe. These were Japheth's children: Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras. Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah were Gomer's sons. Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim were the sons of Javan. The Bible says that Ashkenaz is the ancestor of the Germanic peoples, which is a strange and interesting idea that Jews still believe. Jews call Germany and other Germanic areas Ashkenazic because the ancient and biblical Jewish view is that the ancestor of the Germanic peoples is Ashkenazic. This ancestor gave rise to the Germanic people, including the Germans. Riphath is a figure from the Bible who is not related to Ashkenaz, based on what people thought in the past and what the Irish, who are straight descendants of the Celtic peoples, agree on. They concluded that Riphath is the grandfather of the Celts in the Bible. Riphath, son of Gomer and grandson of Japheth, is the grandfather of the Celtic people, who are also called Celts. People think that the Celts were a group of people that came from Central Europe. Even though they were from different tribes, their culture, customs, religious beliefs, and language were similar. The word Celts is a modern term for a group of people who lived in many tribes during the Iron Age. But the people of Britain and Ireland are not called Celts in any of the ancient texts. Since the Celts were a group of tribes, they were known more by the names of those tribes or societies than as a single country or empire. Celtic tribes are straight descendants of Riphath, son of Gomer and grandson of Japheth. They live all over Europe. There are other sons of Japheth who, in addition to the descendants of Riphath, are always considered to be related to one another and are seen as either European people or portions of Europe or people genetically related to Europeans. For instance, the Bible mentions a man named Madai, who is biblically accepted to be one of Japheth's sons, and who is a reference to the Aryan or Iranian peoples who lived in the region that is now known as Iran. The Madites are personified in the Bible by the Medo-Persians. Medites are also known as Medites. The words Medo and Madai have the same pronunciation because these people hailed from the same place. The Madai tribes, which comprised the Medo-Persians, the Parthians, and many other ancient Persian peoples who could all trace their ancestors back to Madai, were named after Madai, the son of Japheth. Madai was the father of the Madai tribes. Magog is another name that grabs our attention in the book of Genesis, chapter 10, verse 2. There are also the names Tubal and Meshech. It is a common belief in Russia, Ukraine, and other Slavic countries that Tubal and Mesech are their forefathers. The history of the Slavic people is documented in a scroll titled The Primary Chronicle, which is more than 300 years old. This scroll traces the history of the Slavic people all the way back to the time of Noah, whose 3 sons were given the earth as their inheritance. Shem received the territory in the east. Ham received the territory in the south, which included Egypt, Libya, Numidia, and Maceris, as well as other locations. And Japheth received the territory in the northwest, which comprised Armenia, Britain, Illyria, Dalmatia, Ionia, Macedonia, Media, and Paphlagonia, as well as other areas. It was believed that Japheth's offspring included diverse people, including the Varangians, Swedes, Normans, and Rus. The scroll also claims that in the beginning, all people lived together as one land. However, after the Tower of Babel was destroyed, the Slavic race descended from the line of Japheth, since they are the Noritians, who are the same as the Slavs. Therefore, according to the scroll, these 3 individuals from the Bible are the progenitors of the Slavic people. There is widespread consensus among biblical genealogists and historians of nations that Russia and Ukraine are the nations of Gomer and Magog, whose biblical forebears are Tubal and Meshech. These 2 nations are also known as Gog and Magog. These bits of biblical genealogies are necessary for us to know if we must understand the apocalyptic predictions in the book of Revelation, Daniel, Ezekiel, Isaiah, and other books of the sacred scriptures. It is important to learn about each of these tribes, including their names and the names of their ancestors. For example, the Bible ancestors of the Slavic people are Magog, Tubal, and Meshech. Ashkenazes is the father of the Germanics, but it is very important not to mix up the Germanics and the Slavs. We already know the ancestry of some groups of white people in Europe who are genetically linked and all live in Europe. Another descendant of Japhet, Tiras, who was related to the Etruscans, is another important biblical figure. He is thought to be the ancestor of the Italian people because of his link with the Etruscans. The Etruscans are one of the tribes that the old Italians came from. Ancient Romans descended from the Etruscans, and other Javanite people are interested in the history of Javan, son of Japheth. Javan gave rise to more than just Greek people. He also gave rise to people who were connected to the Greeks, but were not Greeks. It is interesting to see that the names of the sons of Japheth are similar in Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic, but they are different in other ways. These names strongly resemble the different languages that came about after the Tower of Babel, because people were so evil at the time. According to the sacred scriptures, there was a tongue that everyone spoke called the Edomite language. Accordingly, too, the first humans, Adam and Eve's children, would have spoken this language. At the moment, there are a lot of different languages spoken around the world. People all over the world speak thousands of different languages, and many of them have their past and development. Modern Greek, the language people speak in Greece today, is an example of this. Ancient Greek gave rise to the speakers of modern Greek. Ancient Greek has been spoken for thousands of years since the ancient Greeks. Over the years, Greek's grammar and vocabulary have changed, giving it the form we know today. Elisha, one of Javan's children, is considered the father of the Greek or Greek people. The first Greeks came from Elisha, who was the grandson of Japheth and the son of Javan. Elisha and Helen sound the same in English, Hebrew, and of course Greek. Tarshish is another son of Javan who makes quite an interesting character for antique scholars. He is named several times in the New Testament, but for the first time in Genesis 10:4. The Tartessians, the first people to live on the Iberian Peninsula, have their roots in Tarshish. The Portuguese and Spaniards are descendants of Tarshish, even though they also have Japheth ancestry. They were originally considered descendants of Tarshish, or Tartessians, because they mixed with Semitic people. We know that Tarshish is Javan's son and Japheth's grandson. Kittim, another son of Javan, is always linked to the island of Cyprus. Since the Cypriots are descended from Kittim, one of Javan's sons, the Cypriots are also descended from Javan. Dodanim is the name of Javan's fourth son, but some people think it is a mistake, and that his real name is Rodnim, or just Doranim, because of language differences. He is considered the ancestor of an old Trojan people called the Dardanoi. We could keep going and spend a lot of time sharing more stories and biblical references about the ancestors of Europe and their origins. However, one thing that stands out in many of these European family trees, just as it did in that of the African race, is that they are all descended from Noah, just like the rest of humanity. In retrospect, Europeans are straight descendants of Japheth, which is why they are called Japheth peoples. Reach down to the comments section and let us know your thoughts. Remember to subscribe to our channel if you found this content valuable, and we'll see you in the next one.